Good morning to all of you out there. Welcome to the program agenda. I'm your host, Cito Beltran, welcoming you on today's episode, straight out of Pasig City, Barrio Capitolio. We're back in the city because things are kind of picking up out here, and we need to get the pulse of what exactly is happening as far as COVID-19 cases go. And for today, we are going to be speaking with none other than the gentleman or our regular source, who is wait a minute, let me just check this out. Okay, in any case, today we'll be interviewing Professor Guido David of the UP OCTA Research Group. And let's find out from him, because based on the news on the of the Philippine Star, there's a growing debate. Some call it a raging debate, because there is a side of people who want a lockdown, and there's another group of people who are saying we can't afford the lockdown. And speaking of being able to afford the lockdown, we will also speak with Congresswoman, representative of the 2nd District of Marikina City, Stella Quimbo, to find out what her thoughts are regarding a second lockdown, a second major lockdown, especially with the findings of a London-based group that says that the gross domestic product forecast for the Philippines is going to go down from 11% down to 9.5%. And they're forecasting gloom and doom for the Philippine economy, especially if another lockdown happens. And of course, when lockdown happens, a sector in the Philippine society gets hit the hardest. Among others, of course, there is the jeepney drivers. Are we going to see jeepney drivers begging on the streets once again? Are they still begging? Kasi marami pong nag-iisip na baka na-ibsan na relieve na. We'll find out. Today is March 15, 2021, and for a historical perspective, it is also known as the Ides of March. Kung hindi nyo alam yung Ides of March, it comes from a Roman belief that the Ides of March brings bad luck. And it is usually in the middle of March. Kasi po originally bad luck yan dahil it was the day for settling utang. Okay, mga atraso, mga babayarin was set on the middle of March. It was also made famous by the fact that Julius Caesar, the Roman emperor, was assassinated. Actually, kinutsilyo siya ng mga senador. And I've written about this. Maybe this is one reason why presidents and presidents don't trust senators, because of the history that brings us back to Julius Caesar. In the news, let's go to the front page of the Philippine Star today. Is it time for another lockdown? Debate rages as the COVID-19 cases continue to increase rapidly. In a few moments, we will speak with OCTA Research Fellow Professor Guido David to find out what his basis are or are for suggesting a 2-week Holy Week and a 2-week lockdown. Okay. The government vows to pick up the pace of vaccination by the second quarter of the year. Health Secretary Francisco Duque III said that currently healthcare workers are inoculated in batches to make sure that hospitals are fully operational. Now, as far as the vaccination program is concerned, it would really help if we could have a schedule, if we can have scientific forecast. But in fairness to the government, ladies and gentlemen, they have no control of this ball game. Kumbaga, tayo ay umaasa sa supply. We are dependent on the supply. We are hampered by the logistical challenges of distribution. The sad part about it is if you were to do a mathematical calculation today, nako po, baka ilang taon bago tayo magkabakunahan sa Pilipinas. Okay. In other news, lawmakers have issued a warning against the Philippine National Police or PNP to get their hands off the lawyers. This after the intelligence unit head of the PNP Calbayog City wrote to the clerk of court allegedly seeking a list of lawyers representing communist personalities. Ayan po, no? I mean, alam nyo, ang tawag dyan, tamad. Kasi if you're a real, genuine intelligence officer, you don't make things obvious, number one. Number two, you have their ways and means to find out, to monitor, to basically study who's who. And but you know, this thing about going after lawyers, these lawyers are simply doing their jobs. If they are sympathetic, if they are emotionally invested, that's because of the job. And sometimes it's hard to delineate between job and emotions. Pero that's what you call commitment. Eh kayong mga gumagawa niyang you go after the lawyers, you go after the family members, you go after the media, eh, ang tawag dyan, mga tamad. Okay, now let's go to the last one. We celebrate 500 years of Christianity in the country. Pope Francis have called on the faithful Filipinos to persevere and spread God's word. Okay, nakalimang daan na po ng Christianity dito sa Pilipinas, and sadly we are unable to celebrate it the Filipino way and make it a very significant celebration. But perhaps in the time of COVID and in the reality of all the challenges and what the Pope has said, perhaps it is best that we spend time in prayer, a prayerful reflection, as suggested also by Professor Guido David of the UP OCTA Research Group. Professor Guido David, welcome to the program.
Yes, hi, good morning again, Cito. Not under the best circumstances, but it's nice to see you again.
Okay, well, you know, Professor, I wasn't surprised at all when I saw in the newspaper that you had suggested a 2-week lockdown. Because, I mean, sabi nga nila, obvious ba? Obvious ba na nagtataasan? Obvious ba na ang bilis ng reproduction and hawahan? But how bad is it really? Because the numbers are growing so fast, it's already hard to tell. Last I read, 5,000 cases in one day.
Well, firstly, Cito, I want to be clear on the record na yung sinuggest ko was not really a 2-week ECQ or MECQ. It was partly joking, but partly outside the box thinking. We were having a conversation on air with the chiefs, kasama sina Robbie Alampay, and I suggested, how about we extend Holy Week to 2 weeks? It's not a lockdown because some people will still be working, but some people will be having, 2-week time out to reflect on things, and will pray for 2 weeks. I don't know, maybe even some people will even do fasting. And then sabi ko, maybe pagkatapos ng 2 weeks na yan, paglabas natin, things will be okay. So it was sort of hindi naman, I would say it's a, just a joke, but
Yeah.
may part truth doon, but it was sort of just an idea lang. What if we, kasi, we have vacations all the time. I mean, we have holidays, and
Well-
Holy Week is a 1-week holiday. So that was the intent. It was not really
Okay.
to suggest mainly an ECQ or an MECQ, kasi I think that was the interpretation by some who read the ano. But going back to the numbers, definitely, and I was here, I think last week, or or was it 2 weeks ago? Pero
Yeah.
even early on during this surge, pag nakikita pala namin tumatas yung cases, we already sound the alarm, not because we're alarmists, but because we are afraid of exactly this kind of situation. The cases are rising and we are having difficulty trying to manage the surge because masyado nang mataas. It's like the snowball effect. So we want to manage it early on while it's still in its early stages na mababa pala yung cases. And that was what happened in last December. Nagkakaroon ng slight uptick and then tinutukan na natin, we reminded people, and we were able to prevent a surge. And some people are saying, oh, because a surge did not happen, mali yung projections namin last December, which is not the case because we're just saying na if we're not careful, we could have a surge. And this is always a threat to us. Hindi naman nawawala yung threat na yan. And especially now that the variants are here.
Okay, last time you were on the program, approximately 2 weeks ago, I asked you a very pointed question. I asked you, are we in the beginnings of a third wave? And you said we are in the beginnings of a surge. And I think at that time we were past the 1,000 or nearly 2,000 mark. And in 2 weeks, we have reached, correct me if I'm wrong, last I heard last Friday, if I'm not mistaken, or Saturday, it was at 5,000 already. So it has more than doubled. So what is the R naught rate right now, or rate of reproduction?
Yes, right now it's at 1.95, and that's the reason that it's growing so fast. This is like parang ano siya, parang tumor that's expanding so quickly, and that is what we are afraid of. Because in our initial projections, we used R not equals 1.6, and we thought na or we saw na the cases would reach 5,000 per day by end of March. Pero it happened middle of March. In fact, before the middle of March napaaga kumbaga yung itong surge, it's much faster because the R naught is higher. So yan ang nakikita natin. It's spreading more quickly, and we believe that the variants are partly responsible for this fast surge because we haven't seen anything like this, Tito. Not in the entire history of our pandemic in the Philippines.
Okay, now another thing that some people have always been saying, oh, it's not so bad because we have very few deaths compared to other countries. So let's stop comparing to other countries. Let's compare to our own history or our own data. What about mortality rates? Has the mortality rate gone up, stayed constant, or is much lower?
Right now, Sita, the rate of mortality is still the same. It hasn't gone up yet, so we're still seeing about maybe 2%. Depends on the region. Because it's a Cebu City, it's higher. It's around 5%. But in Metro Manila, I think it's around 2.5%. So it's about the same. Pero it's possible that the rate will go up because according to some studies na tinitingnan namin, shown presented by some of the doctors in the group, na in the UK they found na by looking at a large number of cases, tumaas din yung mortality rate nila by 60%. So we hope we won't see this kasi hindi naman natin alam kung gaano ka-prevalent yung variant dito. But that is due to the UK variant. It kills 60% more people. So that's according to the data that they looked at. So we will see kasi yung mortality usually follows the surge after mga 2 to 3 weeks. So yung surge natin just started 2 weeks ago. We will see as time goes by if the mortality rate will also increase.
I when I read the story about the suggestion of a 2 week Holy Week, I had mixed feelings because in one side on one side it makes perfect sense. You know, that's 14, 15 days, 14 days to be accurate, for 14 days, and that's enough time for any case of COVID to subside, clear itself, or kill the infected person. But on the other hand, my worry is that if we declare a lockdown in the near future, as always, people will panic, get out of town or move, and it might actually cause an even bigger spread outside of Metro Manila as many people start leaving Metro Manila if they hear that there's going to be a lockdown.
Well, those are valid concerns, Sita. Definitely, that's a concern. Then, if people start leaving Metro Manila and flocking to the provinces, of course, part rin yan ng challenges of the provinces. But what we are seeing so far, and what we have seen in the past,
Mhm.
many of these smaller provinces, they're actually quite good at managing their pandemic. And hindi naman natin sinasabing ibabato natin yung mga cases natin sa provinces para mawala dito. Pero what we're saying is they're able to prevent, I mean, these smaller provinces, not the major metropolitan ones. For major metropolitan areas like Cebu City, syempre nahihirapan sila to manage the pandemic. Kasama niya yung mga Bacolod, Iloilo. And when they lower their cases, they should try their best not to to prevent another surge from happening. So
Mm.
definitely that's a valid concern, Sito. And
Mm. Okay,
uh,
there's a request for clarification here. You said, and I quote, the highest since pandemic struck, the highest surge since this pandemic struck. In reference to what, Professor David?
I mentioned yung fastest rate, yung highest reproduction number since the pandemic struck in Metro Manila. So
Mhm.
right now we're seeing an almost two na reproduction number in Metro Manila. We didn't see this in Metro Manila in the past. I think we saw this nung early March and April, pero yun yung beginning, mataas talaga yung reproduction number at that time. Pero we didn't see this in August. Yung August, July, August, yung peak niya is 1.8 reproduction number. Right now, it's 1.95. And even yung number of cases, I think the highest we had was around 6,000. And more or less, that will probably be overtaken in the coming weeks because we're already at 5,000. And we do foresee that it will reach mga 6,000, maybe more by end of March.
As far as I'm concerned, my speculation, or my it's gut feel and guesswork on my part. You do the science. How do you determine, or how do you figure out that by next week or this coming week? Kasi last Friday or Saturday, 4,900 something, 4,899 cases, new cases. How are you able to tell that by next or this week tatama tayo ng 6,000? And you've been on the money. You guys have done this accurately, but people are beginning to wonder, how do they do it? I mean, it you can't tell until the cases happen. But what is the basis?
Well, Sita, it's as you mentioned last time I was here, we measure the parang velocity or the speed of the transmission. So that's what we do based on the reports of the Department of Health. And from
Mm-hmm.
that velocity, na extrapolate natin how many cases will be expected within a certain period of time in daily cases.
Oh,
So,
okay.
so parang it's like if you know the slope, parang you almost just draw a line na
Mm-hmm.
pataas and then mako-connect yun. Of course, we don't know kung biglang bababa yung cases this week. Of course, though that's not, it does not seem realistic na bababa na siya agad because
What
when we
about
have, yes,
Yeah, what about the curfew? What about the ano ba yung mga ginawa nila? Curfew, no liquor, no
liquor
social
ban.
gathering. There's a liquor ban. When if you go back and review your data, what were the impact of these restrictions?
These will definitely help Sita, and we're hoping na it will definitely slow down the pandemic. We're
Mm-hmm.
hoping that your reproduction number will decrease to right now 1.95. It may decrease to about 1.7 or 1.6, and then we'll have lower projections for that. Pero definitely, it will not cause a downtrend yet. Alam natin from in the past na whenever we make major restrictions or impositions, hindi agad-agad bumababa yung cases. In fact, nung last August, when we implemented MECQ, August 4, it took us mga 27 days, almost 4 weeks, before we went on a downward trend. So ganun katagal yung effect niyan. Because slowing down the pandemic is harder. It's more difficult. Uh, and to reverse the trend is, it will follow after you slow down the pandemic. So we are hoping that this will slow it down enough. Now we can prevent an MECQ. That's actually the optimistic viewpoint natin. And I'm holding hope that this can happen. And that's why we recommended certain, ordinances or restrictions, para we can slow down the pandemic enough that we can say now, oh, it's working. Maybe let's continue this, and then we will see the down. We may eventually see the downward trend. But right now, it's a race against yung going on a downward trend and yung hospitals getting filled up. So of course, that's the other concern. So we hope na we can go on a downward trend before hospitals get filled. Yun naman yun. It's a race against time.
Okay, well, you're bringing up questions in my head, Professor David. Okay, first is, okay, assuming, if the IATF said, okay, Professor, assuming we go with your food for thought. Let's not call it a joke or a silly suggestion. Your food for thought na gumawa tayo. Let's declare 2-week Holy Week lockdown. By how much do you project will we be able to reduce the number of actual cases in the country?
Well, if it's some kind of Holy Week lockdown that will have the same effect, let's say, or close to the same effect as an MECQ, we definitely think that this will reduce the well, as I said, hindi pa naman magkakaroon ng downtrend, but we believe it will significantly reduce yung reproduction number, maybe more than yung other option, which is to go with the localized lockdowns, the curfews. But I really cannot say by how much, because these are all, I mean, there's a lot of variables involved, and projecting this is not easy. And that's why I'm even saying now we're holding hope now these new ordinances, itong localized lockdown, itong curfew, that it will work. If we see, kunyari, next week we see a decrease in reproduction number, then we can say it's working. It's working. Maybe we can see what the effect of this will be. But if we choose the 2-week Holy Week, again, it's hard to say right now how much the effect. Kasi there are different variables.
But we have a template, no, model. We have a prior model when the hospitals and the health practitioners declared a hospital holiday against COVID a few months back, di ba? Nagkaroon sila ng parang na overload na sila. They declared a holiday for, I think, what was it, 1 week or 10 days, pati si Presidente parang naasar, but it worked, right?
Yes, it worked, yes, but there are other factors, because we may be dealing with the variants. At the time we declared that holiday, actually mas mababa yung reproduction number natin. In fact, we were already slowing it down at some level, pero the slowdown was not fast enough, kumbaga. That's why na-overwhelmed na rin yung hospitals. But at that time, we were even hoping na, kasi they were doing localized lockdowns na rin at that time. So we were slowing it down kasi the reproduction number at that time, I think mga nasa 1.3. So it wasn't that high because it came from 1.8. And at some level, it was working na rin, yung mga localized lockdown. But it was not working fast enough. So kumbaga, nauna yung na fill up yung hospitals, and that's why they had to declare a timeout. But again, there are other factors in play here, because maybe the presence of the variants make it a little more tricky, or because they make it faster, yung variants na to. They make the reproduction number higher, they make transmissions faster. So we will see pa kung how this will, be a factor against these variants.
Is there any point where you as researchers would say, sorry, ladies and gentlemen, but at this level of so many thousand cases per week, we have no choice? Meron na bang projection? At what point of the reproduction number does it become a no choice situation? We all go into lockdown.
Uh, Based do sa one of my colleagues is made the hospital projection. So if we don't slow it down right now, I think aabot tayo doon sa timeout period when the doctors will say they want a timeout. Right now we're seeing it at around the end of the month when if we average mga 6,000-7,000 cases. Sorry, not 6,000, maybe 7,000 to 8,000 cases per day. So ibig sabihin, we still have a little margin. And this is what I advocate din naman. We don't have to go into that 2-week Holy Week or lockdown agad. We still have a little margin. We can still wait a little bit before we pull the trigger dito sa Kumaga last resort na talaga yung lockdown if things are not working as fast as we wanted to. But we can wait and see if these localized lockdowns, yun nga, curfew, yung ordinances, they may help a lot kasi and we have to see the results first. If mas slow down yung reproduction number this week, and you can see naman we're trying to work with the system na
Yeah, I
we're
can
doing,
feel. Yeah. I can
yeah.
feel your pain, Professor David. Ladies and gentlemen, intindihin po natin. Let us try to understand what the OCTA Research Group is doing for us. They are gathering the numbers, the mathematical data from the factual information from the Department of Health, and they are extrapolating using their mathematical microscope to give us a system or figures na pwede nating pagbasihan to make intelligent that first to have an intelligent understanding of what is happening out there. Kasi marami pong sabi-sabi, maraming sineshare na mga video, pictures, pero ito pong OCTA Research is basing it on DOH data and telling us the reproductive number is so and so. Pag ganito kataas ang abilidad na manghawa, ganito po kabilis ang mangyayari sa dami ng kaso natin sa araw-araw. Pag ganito po kadami ang kaso natin sa isang linggo, mapupuno po yung mga hospital at pag napuno po yung mga hospital, mapipilitan yung pamahalaan na mag-declare ng lockdown. Huwag ninyong murahin ang OCTA Research, huwag ninyong murahin si Presidente Duterte. This is the reality that we are faced. We have a common enemy, COVID-19. I'm putting it there for you, Professor, because I can feel your pain. Para ka naiipit sa nag-uumpugang bato, as the saying goes. No? But my question, okay, right now, does the data, available data that you have, does it show how many of our hospitals are already full? Because meron na namang nasishare ng mga video data na, this big hospital in Metro Manila, these two big hospitals are already full for COVID cases. And then it doesn't tell us, ito ba yung mga, kasi nagka-COVID sila, pumunta na kagad sila sa hospital, which is now the new protocol, di ba? Kasi dati, you go to the hospital when you're really in bad shape, then they discovered that when you follow that system, chances are you will get seriously ill or you die. So now, most people are going to the hospitals early. Are they filling up because of early consultation or are they filling up because of serious cases?
Well, ito yung data na nakikita natin dito sa Department of Health. Yung ICU occupancy sa NCR right now is around 67%. So that means medyo mataas yung incidence ng serious cases or napupuno na because serious cases will usually lead to ICU. Yung hospital bed occupancy right now is 48%. So hindi pa naman siya puno. And I mean, it's halfway full sa buong
Mhm.
NCR. Yes, may mga hospitals na puno na and may mga hospitals na mababa pa lang yung occupancy.
Mhm.
So, syempre, we have to, I mean, transparent naman tayo. So we take that into context. Ito yung reality. Hindi pa
Mhm.
naman lahat ng hospitals puno. On average, it's about 50% full yung hospital beds. And
Mhm.
I assume yung most na mga mild to moderate na pupunta sa beds. Pero
Mhm.
serious and severe cases, critical cases usually may end up in ICUs. Yung ICUs nasa 65%. So medyo malapit ng maging critical level yung ICU beds natin sa NCR. Pero the hospital beds hindi pa naman. But of course, right now it's okay, but we're worried na if cases increase na hindi natin ma-manage, like we said, mga umabot siya ng let's say 5,000 per day sa NCR, which is which could happen. Right now we're at around 2,400, but if it reaches 5,000 per day, definitely madadagdagan at dadami na yung cases sa hospital natin, no matter what. So yan
Mhm.
yung concern natin.
Okay, so in Metro Manila, it's about 2,004. Kasi medyo marami ring naprapraning, Professor David. No? They're worried because when they see 5,000 cases, the tendency is, wow, this is in Metro Manila. But hindi pala. 5,000 cases, that's all over the country, spread
Yes,
out. Normally, 40 to 50% is in Metro Manila simply
correct.
because we are huge and overly
Yes.
populated.
Yes, and that's the reality. It's 2,400. So hindi pa naman natin na-exceed yung last year na MECQ territory. At that time, we averaged mga 2,700 cases per day. So it's still a little less. And we have more hospital beds now, mas better prepared yung doctors natin. So we have
Mhm.
to, we have to give props din naman kung saan may props. We have expanded testing. Our contact tracing is much better now. So there are advantages. That's why mas mataas yung threshold ngayon eh. Because if it was the same as last year, pag umabot tayo ng 2,700, magta-time out na yung mga healthcare professionals. But right now,
Mhm.
hindi pa naman sila magta-time out at 2,000 or at 3,000, hindi pa naman sila magta-time out sa tingin namin. Pero if we reach 4 to 5,000, definitely they will feel the strain of the sheer number of cases.
Okay, any other matter on the table as far as how to fight COVID? Because I know you guys are being, kahit na nagkakaroon ng, kumbaga, sometimes sa inisan or sama ng loob, dun sa debate niyan, I know that information is shared, ideas are shared. Any new ideas on the table?
Well, Sita, I mean, it's about the same thing din naman. And yes, you're right naman. Hindi lang naman kami gumagawa ng projections. We try to find solutions for the government, national
Mhm.
government, local government. And yes, may some establishments will have to be closed, unfortunately, kasama dito yung mga gyms, because I believe there were high number of infections sa gyms. Of course, yung local governments nag-decide yan. But right now, the local governments are doing what we expect them to do, given their capabilities and what their options are. So we're happy naman with the local government's response. In fact, I would say on air na we know that some of these localized lockdowns are working kasi yung trend right now sa Malabon and sa Navotas are decreasing. So when I was saying when I was saying earlier na I have some optimism about this, it's because we're seeing it on a smaller scale. Na in Navotas and Malabon, they had
Mhm.
localized lockdowns. The trend is actually slowing down there. Except
Mhm.
that sa buong NCR, hindi pa nagsaslow down yung trend. We hope na what's happening in Malabon and Navotas will translate into the bigger picture, into NCR. If we can see that kind of slowdown, we may be able to avoid this MECQ na allergic yung mga tao. And kami, we don't want to go back to MECQ if we can help it din naman. So we're not even suggesting this lockdown as a draconian measure. It's just a last resort tool
Mhm.
to be used by the national government. Pero yun nga, like I said, we're somewhat optimistic na what we're seeing in Malabon and Navotas may translate to NCR. If that happens, yun nga, it would be a good it could be a good outcome for us.
Okay, so last week's highs and last week's worries are now subject to the curfew, the alcohol ban on liquor, the ban on mass gatherings, and in establishments. There is hope because the numbers in Malabon and Navotas are beginning to subside. What about Pasay?
Well, we were seeing a slowdown in Pasay, but it's medyo nag-speed up ulit. So I'm not sure what's going on. Maybe there's just the sheer number of cases. So we don't know what's happening locally. Pero yung Pasay kasi talagang epicenter of this surge. And yeah, and we know that kasi doon nag-umpisa. And right now they're still dealing with this surge in
You
Pasay,
know,
which is
just a quick question, Professor, before we go. I remember in the past, I think before December, if I'm not mistaken, there were efforts or actions where certain areas in a city, large areas, like in Tondo, may mga lugar na that was placed on lockdown. Hindi yung localized, kundi large area lockdown and people were tested. Did that help to contain? Because, people are debating about Pasay because the mayor of Pasay was saying, we're so porous, we can't, we can't effectively enforce a lockdown. But if the numbers keep growing, then evidently the PNP, the military, will have to be sent in there to enforce a lockdown, whether we like it or not.
yes. Well, yung as far as last year, I have to go back on the data. Pero if we did not have a surge, it must have helped or it must have worked. Kasi we did not have a surge since August. And even the December surge did not happen. Na-avert natin yan. It was in its early stages, but we were able to prevent it by our messaging, our constant reminding people. In fact, dito ako last December, I remember we were talking and we were trying to prevent the surge. So we were reminding people to stay at home, ganito.
Yeah.
And that worked. So, we have hope naman na, this messaging, we don't have to go to lockdown, pero maybe some people, they can postpone their leisure activities, stay at home muna yung iba. I mean, yung
I
suggestion
guess,
pa naman
yeah.
for a 2-week Holy Week, it's not for everyone naman. Workers will still work, jeepneys will still travel, pero a lot of people lang will just, stay at home and maybe
Yeah, like I said, I support your suggestion. If at least on a voluntary basis, kasi ginawa rin natin yan last year.
Yeah.
There was a campaign for voluntary isolation. There was a campaign for rest in the hospitals, etc. And you and I campaigned along with thousands of others, campaigned during Christmas, stay home na lang, do it digitally, and now it's the Holy Week thing that's scaring me because unlike the past, this new variant is dangerous and very contagious. In any case, Professor, thank you very much for having the courage and the commitment, you and Rajit Rai and all the people in UP OCTA Research Group and all those aligned with you. Thank you for having the courage and commitment to bring out the much needed information so people can at least be informed and not be ignorant and afraid. Thank you, Professor Guido David.
Thank you, Cito. Good morning.
Okay, that's Professor Guido David, and inuulit ko po mga kaibigan, I am repeating this, please, do not cast aspersions, be critical of what the UP OCTA Research Group is trying to do or doing. They are simply presenting us assessment evaluation based on data of the DOH and helping all of us. Kasi kanina po may nakita ko, kaibigan ko galit, namatay yung kaibigan niya sa COVID, yung uncle niya namatay sa COVID, and sinabi niya F COVID and F the government. And sabi ko, kasalanan ba ng gobyerno? It's happening all over the world. But if we are informed and we listen, and as Professor David says, and the Holy Father Pope Francis said, we pray, we can calm ourselves down and be rational about it and protect ourselves. Okay, let's go for a break. When we return, we will speak with the representative of the 2nd District of Marikina, and we will talk about economy here on Agenda. Welcome back to the program agenda. I'm your host, Cito Beltran, and you are watching us via Signal TV channels 8 and 250. And I just want to remind those of you who have not shifted or have not subscribed to PLDT Home Only Internet, Home Fiber, PLDT Fiber Internet, I strongly recommend the product because wherever we go, as long as there is the PLDT fiber, I am confident I will be able to broadcast. Maraming salamat po dun sa mga patuloy na nanunood, faithful friends who are watching the program and encouraging us, like Roy Regoso. He always watches the program. Good morning, my friend. And all our other friends who are faithfully waiting for the latest information. So, as far as that issue regarding R-naughts, COVID cases, etc., medyo ang punto po ay to alert everyone, to inform everyone that there is a serious problem with COVID-19. And it has not gone away, it has become worse. And it is not the fault of government. Yes, we can criticize. We might criticize one or two personalities or a particular action, but as a whole, wag po naman nating ibintang sa buong pamahalaan yung COVID-19. And also, let us be reminded of the fact that we ourselves are in a position to do something about it. Because as I pointed out to Professor Guido David, when they were talking about the possibility of a 2-week lockdown during the Holy Week, to be honest about it, sa totoo lang po, no? Meron pa ba sa inyong may holiness pag Holy Week? For the longest time, marami akong kakilala. Hole-in-one ang pinagdadasal during Holy Week. Maka-hole-in-one sa golf. Hindi po ako nag-golf. Ako nakikita ninyong ako'y maitim. Likas po akong maitim. At ako po ay nagtatrabaho sa manukan. Meron naman po, will get a tan. Hindi sila kinukrucify during Holy Week. They are on the beach during Holy Week. Yung suggestion po na let's do a 2-week lockdown during Holy Week, kumbaga napunta lang yun sa usapan and parang tina-timing lang. And my only problem there is when we start announcing na, magla-lockdown during the Holy Week, baka lalo maglabasan. Kahapon po, napansin ko doon lang sa highway, medyo makapal over the weekend. Napansin ko in the last 2 weekends, makapal yung biyahe ng mga tao kasi parang habang sumasama ang sitwasyon, naniniguro na. Some people, when they notice things are getting bad, they kind of go, hey, let's go out already, let's go for a quick drive, or let's go out of town this weekend because they might lock down, etc., etc. The problem with that kind of attitude, and me included, all of us think that way. It's like, just in case they lock down, let's take advantage of this weekend, is that you could actually end up getting COVID because you moved. Okay? There is no safer place than where you are not getting COVID-19. Whether it's UK, South African, Cavite, Ilocano, whatever. Kasi dami. Meron na raw, I heard something weird this morning, last week, over the weekend. Homegrown variety. Parang, hello, ano na ba? Ano na ba? Have we reached a point where having your own version of COVID-19 is an achievement? I don't know. But let's speak to our next guest. We have on the line, we have the representative of the 2nd District of Marikina City, a professor, an economist. Sinasabi ko na, baka banatan nyo naman ako, iba dyan na nagtatanga-tangahan ako, tanga ako. We have with us Congresswoman Stella Quimbo. Good morning, ma'am. Welcome again.
Hello, good morning, Cito.
Okay, Congresswoman Quimbo, nung binuksan ko yung business page kanina, meron na kagad projection that from 11% GDP, we're going to fall down to 9.5. And sabi ko, parang, most people, parang, ano ba mo, 1.5 o 2.5, ano ba naman yun? Pero, can you at least, because the headline was medyo nakakatakot eh, masama ang kalalabasan ng ekonomiya natin for the year.
Well, every percentage point, Sito, means 200 billion pesos. So, ganun kalaki po yun, no? So, yung mawalan ka ng 2 percentage points, 400 billion pesos. Malaking bagay. So, but anyhow, I think talagang economic recovery really depends on how fast we can scale up our vaccination rollout.
Mhm.
So
Okay.
tingin ko the forecast must have taken into consideration our vaccine rollout efficiency so far.
Yeah, because when I was listening to the Indian ambassador talking and government officials talking about the vaccine, one or two of them mentioned the fact that 30 to 40 million of the vaccines won't be available until the third or last quarter of 2021. And some people have projected na we will have a real vaccination program full scale only in 2021. In terms of economics, how is this going to affect us?
Well, like, again, talagang right now, the opening of the economy depends on that. So that's what it is. So sa akin, the moving forward really needs three things. So one is
Yeah.
the vaccine rollout. I think that's clear to everyone. Kailangan mabilis natin magawa yan. I think the target is 50 million inoculated individuals by the end of the year. But at the rate that we're going so far, kasi parang based on the news reports, 115,000 pa lang yata yung na-inoculate. So between 115,000 to 50 million, that's an ocean of a difference. So talagang kailangan natin galingan, di ba? So that's one. Number two, I think we need to recalibrate our lockdown policy. Hindi na pwede sa atin yung malawakan, yung massive na national scale lockdown. Hindi na yan mag-work, even if at this point in time, tumataas ang ating COVID cases. So I think it really has to be at the barangay level at magkaroon dapat ng automatic triggers. No? So wala na dapat dyan nagbobotohan ng mayor kung dapat bang mag-lockdown o hindi. Dapat matic yon. There should be for example, if there are X number of new cases per population, dapat ganito yung dapat ECQ. Diba? Or kapag bumaba to this, pwede nang lower to MECQ. Something like that. And then the third element is cash assistance. Sito, no lockdown policy will work unless magbigay ng ayuda. Kasi alam naman natin na karamihan ng workers natin ay no work, no pay. So kahit sabihin natin na bawal lumabas ng bahay. Pero kung ginawa natin yon, paano kakain ng ating mga kababayan kung no work, no pay sila? Kaya yun ang yun ang isang element na sa tingin ko na overlook. Kailangan magbigay talaga ng ayuda. And that's the only way that people will be more compliant to a lockdown. At this point in time, kailangan talaga ng lockdown kasi ang taas ng ng surge. Pero again, the lockdown has to be localized. It has to be at the barangay level. Hindi pwedeng lahat mag-lockdown kasi talagang gutom talagang ending dyan.
Okay, but you have faithfully and persistently pushed for a stimulus package for the poor, for the businesses, etc. And bigyan lang kita ng picture, Congresswoman, medyo na-depress ako over the weekend kasi may nakausap akong bata na nakikisakay sa akin. Sabi ko, bakit ka nakikisakay? May bus naman. Sir, yung dating 110, 300 na po pa Maynila. Wala po akong ganong pera. I was just being careful, no? I'm not being unchristian, pero sabi ko, may senior ako, bata ka, baka may COVID ka, baka asymptomatic ka, mapatay mo ko. But I discovered that the transport charges has tripled. And then another friend na ewan ko, ano rin siya, may pagka-media siya, she went to various malls and started taking videos of so many well-known business establishments that, to quote her, have been boarded up. And sabi ko, pati ang mga yan, pati nga yung favorite restaurant ko dito na Vietnamese dito sa Kapitolyo, nagsara na. And sabi ko, patay-patay na, mukhang matutuluyan yata talaga tayo. Anong nangyayari dun sa stimulus package yung sa Kongreso, Congresswoman?
Well, una sa lahat, no, I'd like to agree with you. No? So bukod sa food inflation, so right now, ang laman ng business news kasi is all about food inflation. It's a very important issue. Ang taas ng presyo ng vegetables, ang taas ng presyo ng pork, dumoble since last year. Pero number two, ang taas din ng transportation sector inflation. Yung sa tricycles na lang, Cito, ang inflation for tricycles is 46%. So, pag titignan natin lahat ng commodities, I think yung tricycle fares yung pinaka naapektuhan ng inflation. Why? I think it's because of the IATF rule na kahit mag-asawa, hindi pwedeng mag-share ng tricycle. Pwede ba yun? Sabi ko nga, magkatabi nga silang matulog at night, pero hindi sila pwedeng magkatabi sa tricycle. And because of that, in that simple example, nadodoble yung tricycle fare. But having said that, so that's one of the reasons for why Speaker Velasco and I filed another Bayanihan 3 version last January. So bukod sa napakataas, no, sa record high GDP contraction of 9.5% announced last January 28, lumabas din po na napakataas ng food inflation. So again, we reiterated our call for a Bayanihan 3, so another round of ayuda. So Bayanihan 3 is really mostly an ayuda bill. So it's ayuda for families. Nakapeg po siya at 1,000 per head. And then ayuda for workers, whether displaced worker ka or currently employed but employed by an MSME, dapat may ayuda. And number two, ayuda for MSMEs. And ang ayuda for MSMEs is not like what we authorized under Bayanihan 2. Kasi doon sa Bayanihan 2, Cito, that's all pautang. We expanded pautang programs for MSMEs. Wala naman utang ngayon, Cito eh. Takot
Exactly.
lahat eh. So, ang sa akin, those are funds na natutulog lamang. And that's 1/3 of Bayanihan 2, of the 165 billion authorized under Bayanihan 2, 55 billion is for loans for MSMEs. But right now, the take-up is very low. Again, because of lack of confidence. So, sabi namin, dapat bigyan ng grants ang MSMEs. Ibigay mo na. Kasi talagang that's the only way na makatayo ulit sila. And kapag maging viable sila, saka sila uutang.
Pati nga yun sa pagbababoy, sabi ko nga, tinamaan na kami ng ASF, tapos sasabihin pa niyong umutang ako. Ano ko, hilo?
Correct.
Sabi ko,
Tama po.
magpartner ang gobyerno sa magsasaka, sa magbababoy, sa magmamanok, or dun sa negosyante, go into partnerships. Just like, biblical, Congresswoman, di ba? From Joseph, in the Bible, he basically became the biggest shareholder of all the businesses in Egypt when they were hit by a 7-year drought. So, natulungan, nasave yung economy ng Egypt, and I think we have that. But what are the chances na lalabas itong stimulus 3 ninyo, Congresswoman Quimbo?
Well, mas malaki ang chances na lumabas ulit dito sa Congress kasi kino-consolidate na po namin ang various versions of Bayanihan 3. And right now po, we're talking to, halimbawa po, we talked to BSP last Friday to talk about anong funds pang available. So pinupush pa po namin. Hindi ko lang po alam kung merong movement po sa Senate. But on our end po, kasi it's a bill of the Speaker, kaya tingin ko pagdating sa amin po at napakarami naman pong co-authors.
Okay, well, aabangan namin yan, Congresswoman. I'm sorry we've run out of time, but hopefully in another day we'll have more time with you and pag-usapan natin ng masinsinan kasi yung sa transport hindi natin napag-usapan. And when transportation triples, sino pang bibiyahe? Yung sweldo mo nga hindi na triple, pamasahe mo na triple, pagkain mo na triple, walang mangyayari. Thank you very much, Congresswoman.
All right, thank you.
Okay, yan po si Congresswoman Stella Quimbo, 2nd District of Marikina. And again, no, she's not being critical of anybody, and neither am I. But the facts have started to come out. The gross domestic product lumiit, meaning yung ating kapasidad, our ability to produce products, to generate income and wealth and jobs have shrunk. Kumbaga lumiit ng lumiit dahil nga dito sa COVID. Yung pamasahe, trumiple doon po sa papuntang Batangas, times 3 na po. Pagkatapos, ngayon, eto pagkain, tumaas. Kanya kailangan po harapin na ng gobyerno. Umutang na kung uutang, pero mahirap kasi yung magugutom na magugutom, magkakasakit, magkakamatayan. Hindi po tama yan. Okay, we have to go. It's a good Monday for all of us. Informative Monday. God bless all of you. Please stay safe, stay strong, and stay healthy. I love you all. Thank you. That's Agenda for You today.